Okay, good morning and welcome to Monkhouse on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and soon to be Tuesdays and Thursdays if demand is anything to go by. So today I have got Paul Reeves with me from Everyone Active. So good morning, Paul. How are you today?
Very well, thank you, Dave. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Yeah, keeping busy, keeping active. My 5K time is dropping, which I'm pleased about. It's really interesting, isn't it, in this lockdown period, how much exercise we're all getting. So what are you up to? Because I know you're a bit of a hockey player, so that must be out the window at the minute.
Yeah, it has been a challenging time, as you know. As you say, my weekends normally spent about as crazy as yours, running around on a Saturday and a Sunday with hockey and chasing people about half my age, trying to keep up with them and stay fit. So it has been challenging. I think I've joined the digital revolution in terms of online streaming classes, which my 15-year-old daughter plays hockey as well. Is highly competitive. So I did okay at first. We were doing body combat and body attack and things like that, and I was kind of beating her in my own competitive way, as we do. But then I made the foolish mistake of buying an agility ladder, and those things are tough.
Yeah.
So she's put me through the paces on that a little bit while the weather's been so nice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thankfully, they'd run out of those when I went to look for those. So yeah, just brilliant. I was really pleased.
Yeah, I looked at it and thought, yeah, I can do that. That's not a problem. Yeah, seriously out of shape already.
No, brilliant. Okay, and it's interesting, you've mentioned the digital revolution there already, and I know our contact has been around digital and the types of communication we've had around digital sales in particular. So just thinking about the lockdown and things like that, how did your knowledge of that digital sales things sort of assist you in the build up to lockdown when we knew it was coming?
Yeah, the build-up was a really interesting time. I think we sat there in this country with a sense of bewilderment, looking at what was happening around the world and all the lockdowns that are happening. And kind of at the end of February, I started having conversations around what happens if. So throughout March, really, I was looking at a lot of the online signals, a lot of the build-up that was happening. And it was fascinating because the coronavirus online searches in the 3 weeks prior to lockdown jumped up by 1,800%. So you could see there was starting to be some real kind of traction in terms of what people were looking at. So you start looking a bit deep into that. From the 8th of March, the 3 weeks kind of prior to us closing, again, there was a massive boost in rural gyms in the UK close. So right from the 8th of March through, allowed us to start some early planning really to understand what would happen when we get to that point. It started to look more and more inevitable as we went through. And then again, alongside all the gyms closed, funny enough, there was also the parallel search of home workouts, which saw a 600% increase in March. So there was a massive boost in people thinking, if my gym shuts, how am I going to stay active? Some of the things that allowed us to do was put in that pre-preparation work and really think about shifting our digital adverts and our presence more to the at-home solutions that we already had, thinking about how we can leverage them. Which ultimately let us do two things. It let us build some traction in the build-up to it, but also meant on that fateful night when we got told we had to shut, we could very quickly sort of pivot on to what we need to do in terms of the online training. So that was absolutely critical, and it was vital we kind of stayed in touch with all the online signals so we can make sure our messaging stayed current, our plan stayed current, and we could really adapt quickly to what we're doing. I think that's one of the big things that digital does give you. It allows you to be really agile in your approach and allows you to change things. You know, within an hour, you can get a new advert live, some different messaging, look at your analytics, and really use your data to drive that key messaging forward. In terms of our internal database, again, like all other operators, we've got significant amounts of data from going back 10, 20 years in some cases. But we don't use it in a lot of ways as an industry very well. I think we've got a lot of legacy data that we kind of don't rely on. So I spent about a week or so just going through some different segments on that, looking at recency, length of stay, and ultimately looking at what our current membership database's online presence already was. So then you can start thinking about messaging in different ways as well. You've got some people that already use our online solutions, which are going to be very easy to kind of convert and keep engaged in that mentality. And you've got the others that have never been on the app, they've never been onto any of our online content. So you can start thinking again about some different messaging to different demographics, different age groups in terms of getting them active on there as well in the build-up, which again allowed us hopefully to convert some more as we went through. But also, it's the same as all other operators. It was about controlling budgets, using your data in the best possible way you can, and really understanding what your analytics was telling you to get the best out of it. And then the final thing that really kind of made a difference, I feel, was I had more of a focus on social listening, to really understand what our social channels are saying to us, really understanding the member feedback, the positive and the negative, really understanding how we can use those themes to again evolve our messaging and really understand what our customers wanted from us at that time. It was certainly a very interesting time and a big learning curve. We've never had to do that before in this industry. I know there's been a lot of talk about digital transformation and all these digital things coming through, but it's the first time all the operators have really had to have a significant shift in focus to how we do that. And there was an interesting sense of panic.
Yeah, there was, wasn't there? You know, Friday, 5 o'clock, as you say, it's not a great time to find out we're going to shut everything. It was a bit on that. But really interesting, you started to, by the sounds of it, segment your data. Did you create personas? You know, like the old marketing intelligence type stuff? Yeah,
we already used some marketing personas. I think the problem is we are trying to move away from personas. They are a very blunt tool. Right. Okay. There's a lot of work going into trying to pull in some real-time buying signal data. Right. There's actually a trial done by Harley Davidson, completely out of our industry, but they use real-time buying signals and looked at their high-value customers on their database, and they actually saw 175% increase in sales over one weekend using that data. So okay. Yes, personas have got a place, and they're something we have used for a little while now. But I think technology is moving to a point now where we can actually be a lot sharper with real-time data to get more out of that. But yeah, certain personas do have a place, and they do help to kind of target your messaging and target where you're thinking a little bit sometimes. But yeah, there's some developments on there.
Okay, excellent. And by the sounds of it, you've done a lot of reflection, which is really powerful. It's something I'm missing because I'm not driving anywhere at the moment, so I'm having to make time for reflection. So based on that reflection, how have you used all this digital knowledge to start thinking about what does unlocking look like?
I think unlocking will be very interesting from a sales point of view, very interesting from a retention point of view. I think a lot of it will depend on the circumstances we do unlock with. We looking like it's going to be a phased opening approach, and we're going to have limits on access, etc. So I think that will limit us in some ways. I think it will create opportunities in other ways. There's talk of the biggest pre-sale in history. I think that will ultimately dictate whether you can do that or not. If you've got no capacity, you're not going to be able to do that. I think some of the things that have been interesting during lockdown is voice search has seen a massive increase. There's been nearly 100% uplift in voice search in the UK. Now, voice search has never really been, again, in the leisure industry, a key focus. It's more been around podcasts and music and things. But as people get more and more used to that technology, that again gives us some opportunities to think about how we can drive our SEO engagement and make it more conversational, because there is going to be a shift in search engine results to be position 0, because position 1 is not going to be long and good enough anymore, because you need a feature. As you know, when you do a voice search, it talks back to you. There's no clicks, there's nothing to kind of work on. So that requires a different kind of thought on how we do that. And I think also there's going to be 2 big audience opportunities. There's obviously the family market, who have been active probably the first time together in a long time, if at all. And how do we as an industry utilise that to get them into our centres in a proactive way? And one of the big benefits of doing that is a lot of them won't be gym users, but we've got some fantastic sports halls. So can we utilise those spaces and just increase our capacity that way a little bit? And I think also there's the home workout market. Now, clearly there's something like 1,000 fitness tech companies out there at the moment. So, tech has always been coming into this industry, and there's some great examples of online streaming workouts, which a lot of the operators have now partnered with people and driving those out. I know we have. But at some point, from an operator point of view, we're going to want to get them into our centres, because they've potentially done some classes for the first time. So how do we tap into those and get those back into our centres? How do we keep them motivated? Is there a place for an online-only membership offering as well as a bricks and mortar membership offering? And I think there is some interesting conversations there. I think from my own experience of doing some classes at home, I think I can't wait till bricks and mortar centres get back open. I think people really miss that contact, they really miss the personal touches, and they probably really miss those instructors as well. So it's how can you utilise the online streaming platforms as well as some local instructors, and really think about how you bring that journey together. I think that would be really interesting.
No, absolutely. And I had the pleasure of talking to Andy Reid recently, and the bit that Andy and Reid and I have got in common is also, and you, is that connection to sport. It's not just about fitness. It's not just about health. It's about playing sport and the camaraderie and the pleasure that certainly I get of being able to play sport with my 13-year-old daughter. We play badges hockey just like you do, and I that's the bit I've missed. The game of squash. Certainly on my MyZone MEPs as well, I really miss squash and hockey because I get so many points. It's hard to hit my title without those, but never mind. But yeah, it's really interesting because I suppose you've looked at what you did beforehand, you've looked at what you're doing during, and I guess the challenge with digital is it moves so fast. But is there any crystal ball stuff? Is there anything in the future of digital that you can see happening?
I think there's some really exciting opportunities. I think the future is where it gets really fascinating. I think one thing that the lockdown has done for us, which we've always shied away from as an industry, is this big red reset button. So we've always kind of tiptoed around, not waking the sleeping members and don't contact everyone. That's kind of out the window now, and I think it's a really great opportunity to really reimagine what our customer experience should be like and how we really put the customer at the heart of everything we do. And I think if we approach things in that sort of way, I think digital can provide some absolutely fantastic opportunities for our industry. I think for me, it's more about digital evolution rather than transformation, because I think very few companies will actually fully transform what they do. I think evolution can really kind of open up the opportunities to the industry to get the best out of technology for us, and approaching more from a customer first perspective rather than a cost saving perspective, because I think the cost savings will come, but once you start putting the customer first and thinking about how you can use technology to really leverage the opportunity for the individual, I think that's where you can get the opportunities. I think some of the big things that probably will change, I think the biggest one is artificial intelligence and the utilisation of that in fitness. And we're not talking about big muscular robots patrolling gyms teaching people how to do bicep curls. We're talking about particularly how you apply that to data. The big data challenge, the Internet of Things conversation. There's all these different kind of products that are now connectable. Everything's kind of fashionable to be connectivity, and you can do this. How do you pull all that data in? How do you pull in the data from your gym kit and utilise that in a much more educational way? Because people come to us to achieve things. So how can we use the data we've got to kind of relate to them that they are making progress? So sometimes progress from a fitness member's point of view is very hard to measure, because you look yourself in the mirror every day. You don't really see the changes. You don't see the fact you've managed to do another rep on a bit of weights equipment, or you've managed to run another 20 seconds or whatever it is. And those can be really powerful messaging. So I think utilising AI to get, again, back to real-time data conversation, pull that in and get some really hyper-personalised omni-channel customer experiences. And I think there's some really big opportunities and really exciting opportunities there. There's also some risks in that. You need to be very careful with data and privacy and making sure you manage that whole strategy carefully, but there's a big opportunity there. I think we'll continue to see gamification. I know, as you've touched on MyZone, you're a big advocate of MyZone, and that is a great example of, especially during this lockdown, how a community of people have managed to keep themselves motivated, keep themselves challenged, and that's, that is ultimately gamification itself. But I think we'll see more and more examples of that coming through as more and more technology comes into centres. And then the other two really kind of interlinked. I think augmented reality. I don't think virtual reality for me will have a big role to play in the industry. So I think it's a bit too inhibiting and cumbersome. But I think augmented reality can have some really impactful experiences in centre. And it can, again, going back to the families and sports halls, there's some great opportunities with augmented reality where they can play competitive kind of games with each other from a game point of view, which that Generation Z millennials are all going to buy into, the younger generation are going to buy into that, because that's what they're used to. They're used to that Xbox culture. So I think that's a really, really powerful thing that will come in. And I think also immersive studios, and I know we've already got kind of immersive studios in place, but I think augmented reality can take it to another level. And there's augmented screens. I saw something on the news last week about an augmented screen in a museum. It's been used to really bring a display to life. And I think that has some interesting implications for fitness as well, and how do we bring that display in that different environment into our centres. And again, I think the work at home people, if we just go back to using virtual in the studio environment, people very quickly think, well, it's the same video I can watch at home. Whereas if we can start bringing some different experiences and augmented reality into that environment and really get them immersed in the culture of it, I think that's where we can really get some exciting differences from there. And then the one big thing that will ultimately make a huge difference to all of the technology, which It's a bit of a sore point in some cases at the moment, is 5G.
Right.
I think, 5G is not just faster 4G. It allows us to transmit much more data at much higher speed, much greater connectivity, and that has some really interesting implications in terms of not only our in-centre experience, but also our marketing and our contextual delivery of marketing, and how we can really target people and utilise much more, again, that hyper-personalised content to engage them and motivate them and keep them interested in our facilities. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting period in the next couple of years in fitness. I think one of the challenges will be operators' budgets will be under pressure. We know that. But it's about what steps do we take in the meantime to build back to that position, because it's not just going to happen, flick a switch overnight. You're going to have 5G, you're going to have AI, you're going to have VR, whatever.
Sure.
It's about the steps and the strategy to build to that point.
And that's absolutely fascinating. And Paul, I could talk to you for hours, but we've done our time, and we need to be really careful at that time. But I think it's really interesting because it links to two things. So at the moment, I'm rereading George Orwell, 1984. And it's fascinating when you start talking about all of the 5G and the connectivity and the Internet of Things. And that also links to something that I'm really passionate about, which is that personalization piece. And I think what you've described here is much more personal experience rather than a persona experience, as you described, and other those types of things. So Paul, that has been absolutely fascinating. And if this series continues, I'd love to have another chat with you in a few months' time, just to see what's happened as a reality check. So Paul, thank you so much for your time. Look after your family, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.